Hello, welcome. That came out really funny. I've been off for a few days, so I'm like really chill. And I'm about to go into a Lilith reading, so Lord help me. Hello, Lilith in Virgo, as well as we will be covering Lilith in the 6th house. Sort of energy, they're a little bit combined. I want to say the Lilith in the astrological sign is probably the most pertinent in terms of how it affects your life. But you know, having said that, with astrology, there's so many different ways things affect us. If things are debilitated, you know what I'm saying. So this is mostly for Virgo, but I mean, I do my research, and I'm going to tell you about the things that I read. I do my research and I read you some stuff about this placement before I get into the cards. So even because I don't have Lilith in Virgo, but I do have her in the 6th house. So I'm reading this stuff and thinking, wow, it's really interesting. I see how that plays out in my life. So I still think, like, if you have her in the 6th house, there's still some interesting information here. And I know there's some people who are watching the whole series, which I'm really fascinated by it too. I have to say, out of all of the readings that I've been doing, I find I'm really getting into the deeper parts of humanity, just going in here and learning more about y'all and myself than any other time. So this is Lilith in Virgo. And just to clear that up too, if you want to know where she sits, you can Google just, you know, how to find Lilith. What zodiac does Lilith sit in? For me, you're going to get all sorts of things. You can just type in your birthday. It'll tell you where Lilith sits. It's like a mathematical equation in space near the moon or something like that. But there's so much more to the just to the mythology of Lilith as well. So there's that. Now, how to figure out what house she's in. So here's the thing. So go to, like, I think it's astro-charts.com is just one of my favorites. I find it really easy to use. And they'll give you a pie chart that shows you your ascendant and whatnot. And you'll get a whole reading. Again, you punch in your birthday. And to figure out what house she sits in, first you need to figure out what sign she's in, what astrological sign. So for me, like, she sits in Scorpio and she's in my 6th house. So Scorpio is in my 6th house. That's how I know Lilith is in the 6th house. So my rising sign, my ascendant is Gemini. So that's my 1st house. So typically you would, like, the 1st house is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, but for you and your sign, what is your ascendant? That's your 1st house. And then from there you start counting till you get to where Lilith sits. So if she's sitting in Virgo for you, what house is Virgo in for you? There, that's the easiest way. I hope I described that real. So, oh God, there is a sexual energy that comes through with her. It's like, oh gosh, Lilith. So I just want to show you this is the thing too. I've got my phone flipped, so I cannot see the screen. It's helping me focus more on the readings. So anyway, so that's the thing. So I hope there's not too much glare. But I always call Virgo, like, if you've ever been to one of my zodiac sign readings for Virgo, I always call them sexy, sexy Virgo, because the mind is the sexiest aspect of you. And boy, we got that playing out here with Lilith and Virgo. So before I pull out the cards, I'm going to read to you some of the notes that I took about Lilith and Virgo, and then I'll read you to about in the 6th house. Now, some of this can play back and forth too. Like if you have her in the 6th house, you may notice, I'm sorry, I'm really lisping with my dental thing today. I guess because I haven't done a video in quite a few days. So back and forth. And again, with the 6th house, they're kind of mutable. They play around with each other. So this can be an obsessive perfectionist, hypercritical about hygiene as well. This can play out as a sexual servant in the bedroom, enjoys degrading sex, or may suffer from sexual shame and repression altogether. Now, again, there is a gradient in all of this, and I think a lot of people in life are born into situations, they experience things as children. It kind of starts to program their mind about how to survive in the world, what's the best way to react or not to react, how to do things. I mean, really, that's what your mind is programmed to start doing as soon as you're born, is how do I survive and how do I function? So a lot of things that we develop kind of, as I'm reading with Lilith, it always often comes back to things that happened in your childhood and then how that plays out for you as an adult. So again, how things have happened to you as a child will be on a gradient as well. And I think a lot of people, what I'm reading in these Lilith in the zodiacs is that it's finding the balance, because that's what Lilith is about. She's trying to help each of us strike out a balance. So you may not want to be a sexual servant. You may not want to be degraded in the bedroom. And you may also not feel shame about your sexuality or completely repress it. But you may have at some point in your life, and maybe you've come to the balance. So everything I'm going to talk about, just listen to that on a gradient. Again, maybe obsessive compulsive or very messy. That's the other thing. You could be very, very messy. Could be very lucid in your sexual expression or repressing your instincts. That's just instincts, so it may not just be sexual instincts, but what your instincts are telling you how to react or what to think about a situation. You may repress that because it doesn't make sense. Because Virgo, don't forget where we are here in this placement. Virgo, a more logical rather than emotional attitude to life. You may feel misunderstood. That comes up in a lot. I think we all feel misunderstood, to be honest. High expectations of self and others and of the world around you. Often had strict parents or parent or shamed. So you may not have had strict parents, and you may not have even had parents that shamed you if you did something that did not fall into alignment with the environment that you were in. That can come out in so many ways. That could show up at a summer camp. That could show up at school. That could show up in your neighborhood playing with friends, right? So I'm going to read that again to you. Although it does say often, so there's probably a more likelihood that you did have a strict parent or parents. So often had strict parents or shamed if you did something that did not fall into alignment with your environment. So again, that comes back to, you see how it kind of reverts to kind of how like something may have happened to you and it might have seemed very dramatic to you as a child, and it just serves as thinking, oh, I never want that to happen again, or I never want that person to feel that way or think that about me again. So you kind of change something, and when you're so young, your mind is so easily influenced and mutable. Now, this is the interesting thing about this placement, because Virgo is all about order. Virgo is very order. Any Virgo I've known, it can be a little anal about keeping things clean, keeping things in a row, knowing what's going on, understanding this and that, the black and white in life without the gradient of shade. But Lilith is all about chaos. So this is a really tricky placement, because this is about half of you, right? And we said, like, you can be OCD, you can be so obsessive compulsive, or you could be just completely a mess. You could just be a slob, you don't want to shower anymore, or you can feel like you want to shower like 3 times a day. That'll dry your skin out. You shouldn't do that. This placement searches for inner clarity, rest, and reliability. I think that's a really important way to get balance in this placement, actually. If you find yourself searching for that, finding clarity within. And I think this would help this placement find clarity outside of you as well. Because once you understand what you're working with inside, it gives you a better perspective of who you are and what your goals are and what makes you feel comfortable and uncomfortable, and then how to recognize those things in the world as you move forward. So really, I think inner clarity is always the most important, but it is very important for this sign. Rest and reliability. This sign, this is the first one that I've hit that really talks about how important mental health is in this sign, because of the whole idea of order and chaos being brought in here. So mental health is extremely important for this sign, like to seek it and to do, you may not seek it actually from others. You may not ask for help from others in this sign, but really find it for yourself. Lilith doesn't tolerate control or strict rules, but you know, like that's a little bit of Virgo there. You may have been bullied as a child for your intellect. I can't say I ever had that. You don't take things at face value. Critical and questioning and strong opinions. Oh, something so weird going on right now. I'm getting like this feeling like my head is being tapped and it bothers me. I don't know. I haven't had that happen in a reading before. I've had that happen in sort of a, it won't go away. Stop tapping my head. It's so weird. I don't know if it's actually like a little tiny muscle spasm under my scalp, or it literally is some sort of a, I don't know, a ghost tapping my head. Just stop. Bothering me. It's almost like this Lilith and Virgo, right? Yeah, it's like a little nitpicky. That was a little nitpicky. You don't take things at face value. Critical and questioning and strong opinion. Isn't that funny because I talked about that? Like, yeah, you don't take that at face value. There's got to be a reason why that's going on. It's not just because it feels like your head's being tapped. Life is not black and white. However, there are often extreme shifts in beliefs in this sign. It is like that. It's almost like when I was reading this, I sort of channeled like this whole idea, or just my mind. I don't want to say channeled anymore. I don't know, maybe it's just my mind. But the idea of like, you could like totally dive into rabbit holes and go into conspiracy theories. And you could like full on believe that stuff. It could become your new religion. Anything that's not on it, there's like, no, no, no. This is what I believe and this is how it is. And then something can happen in your life. You could be presented with something that completely discounts, discredits the source, a belief that you had, and then you're no. Like you just no on the other side. Where, I mean, I always like to say, I really believe that everything in life, there's a little bit of truth and a little bit of lies to all of it. Like the Bible, anything, laws, everything that we deal with, because it's the easiest way to cause confusion and polarization and community is not to just put all lies out there, or not to have it all truth, any source that you have, because it's, you know, it's mutable. Anyway, so it's something to think about, that life is not black and white, which is a hard thing for this placement. It's like, I wrote down here myself, big pushes and pulls. That's what this feels like a big push in this direction. It's where I'm going. And then something happens in life and it disrupts that. And then you completely pull away from that lifestyle, that belief, how you saw yourself. Again, like you could go from perhaps being a servant in the bedroom and enjoying degrading sex, and then completely maybe feeling shame for it, and then repressing your sexuality all out. And then too, like if you were bullied as a child for your intellect, I can see this particularly for feminine placements, because a lot of masculine energy can feel threatened by very attractive women who are also smart, or just any woman who's smart. It's like, you know, you're just supposed to be boobs and ass. What are you being so smart for? You don't need to do that. But like, right? Like you could kind of fall into that and say, well, I'm not gonna try to be smarter. I'm not gonna raise my hand, or I'm not gonna volunteer that idea or that information. It's a pushback. There's definitely that going on here. Depending on the house, now this is interesting. I think this came up in something I was reading, but I would put it right across the board for all of these Lilith readings. Depending on the house placement, this can be, well, no, actually this can be an Ice Queen placement. I couldn't really find details about what would make this an Ice Queen placement. I don't know. Maybe I'd have to sit back and look at all the research I've done, and I'm only halfway through now. So I don't know if any of you have done any research or what you think that might manifest as, or how that would manifest, what placement that would manifest in. I want to say there is a possibility. I want to say anything that pushes your emotions away over the intellect, like rules the intellect over the emotion. To me, that would push this into an Ice Queen placement. So there is a possibility. If you have Virgo in the 6th house with Lilith, there is the possibility of that. And then there is also the love should be practical and economical. Love is math to Lilith here. Emotions are not the most important factor. You easily see the faults in others, but are also hard on yourself. And this is where the mental health is huge in this placement. Look after this for yourself. So I think one of the reasons you easily see the faults in others is because you do have this really highly detailed aspect of Virgo. But it can be so black and white. You know, we all have faults. None of us are perfect. And in how we view a fault is really our own perspective, because that fault might actually be serving that person really well in the life that they're leading and the things that have happened to them. But it's not to say that, you know, well, we're going to get there in a minute, actually. Oh, that comes up in the 6th house. Not to say that you're a narcissist and you only see like the good in yourself. No, because you do. You can be very hard on yourself. And this is why mental health is huge in this placement. This placement doesn't like to ask for help. So that's the problem there too. Don't like others to see your vulnerable side. So that's what I got here for Lilith and Virgo. I think that's a really difficult, that combination is really difficult. I want to even say, like, for myself, I don't have her in Virgo, but I have her in a 6th house. And I can say because I think a lot. But then I've also lived a life where I've had to learn to be very dependent on myself. So I want to say like that can be difficult to like ask others for help. Because maybe people have let you down in the past. So that might be how that manifests. He doesn't like to ask for help. Yeah, I'm stubborn. I'm Aries too, so that's stubbornness. Okay, so now in the 6th house. So if Lilith is not in Virgo, but you got her in the 6th house, here you go. You have a shining intelligence, a brilliant mind that can lead a person to various high positions and success. So what I find interesting is like looking at the house placements, because, well, there is shadow part to the house placements, but I find like the zodiac placement really focuses on a lot of the shadow, but I think it does that to try to help us gain balance and have a more conscious awareness of ourselves. So, yeah, that's why I think it is also important to try to figure out what your house is, so you can watch that as well, so you can find a balance here. Okay, Lilith in the 6th house, a shining intelligence and brilliant mind that can lead a person to various high positions and success. Rebellion against order and a provocative humor. You can have a lucid expression of sexuality or repression of instinct. So then that kind of comes up again. Like in the Virgo, you can see how it kind of plays. You can be hypercritical about your own hygiene, which is interesting. That's really interesting. Hypercritical about your own hygiene. That kind of showed up a bit in Lilith in Virgo too. So there's a karmic duty in this house to overcome the feeling of guilt and inferiority. I kind of feel like too, like inferiority, to me comes up again, like not wanting to ask for help. Because that came out here. This placement doesn't like to ask for help. Because you don't like others to see your vulnerable side. So maybe there's like, if I combine the two of that, is feeling like your vulnerable side shows that you're inferior on some level. Like the perfectionist that... It's so weird what's going on with my head right now. It happened to me. Let me finish this and I'll tell you my story. Maybe I should leave it to the end or I might forget. I don't know. Okay, anyways. A natural at getting inside their lovers' minds. Mysterious and sensual, at your best behind closed doors. I'm just going to leave that for there. The shadow can lead to vanity. A narcissism, and I wrote it funny, so I'm going to have trouble saying it, because I wrote it on a curve, because I was running out of space. Megalomania, I think is how you say it, yeah. So it's really like kind of tyrant energy. That's the shadow. So the vanity, like if you really are a really vain person, you take all of this to an extreme, you could be like really like a tyrannical person. Narcissistic, megalomania. If someone presses your button, you'll roar and throw a big fat tantrum to get you away. Now, I had to laugh at that because I had this a week or so ago. It wasn't about a person. Actually, not really anymore. When I was younger, maybe, but not now. I find like things will set me off here. So, and it was trying to negotiate the shipping in eBay, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I was getting so frustrated. And I felt like a 2-year-old. Like, I felt like I went right down to 2-year-old Cindy. I was so mad. I couldn't solve it. And I think that's part of, though, that really intellectual mind, like hitting something that you can't solve. So, and it could be a person. That's interesting too, the way I came around with that. So that could press your buttons too, like not being able to solve someone or a situation. You'll roar and throw a big fat tantrum to get your way. These are kind of the shadow aspects. Okay, this is interesting too. So to kind of keep a healthy mind with this placement, intellectual work is important. Otherwise, this sign can become dangerous. I don't know what they mean by dangerous. A tyrant, maybe? But I found that really interesting too, because there were points in my own life where I found boredom setting in and my job became very tedious. I worked in the pest control industry for quite a few years, and I started out as a technician and eventually went into the QA department and did some really interesting things. But as a technician, I used to like organize my route. So I just felt, I don't know. I could probably be relating to people that get me talking to this sign right now. I just find so many people are so disorganized. It's like, when I started work, I didn't have my own route. So I would just do, like, if the guy was on vacation, I was doing his route for a week or two. And within that 1 or 2 weeks, I completely organized his route and cleaned out his truck. Like, I cannot, these guys work like they're pigs. But yeah, so then I got my own route and I organized it within, I think, 3 to 4 months, to the point where I started at 6 a.m. and I was done by 1 p.m. And then I was getting bored. Like, I just need something else. I solved all the problems and everything was so organized. Like, I feel like if you're not in an intellectual, if you aren't doing something with your intellect and work, you're going to find a way to do it. And then you can become dangerous. I don't know how that plays out. I just found I needed to go somewhere else to work where I could move forward, but that's really interesting. So there you go. I think I said everything I wanted to say about this. Oh my God. Yeah, these are long readings. Like, just covering this in itself before I get into the cards is an interesting discussion. So what we're going to do now is, I've got 2 decks here. And I have no idea what she wants to talk to you about. I'm just going to say. I have no idea. It feels like sometimes it's bang on with what we've been discussing in the house and the zodiac placement. And then other times it's left field. So just be prepared. Oh, there's going to be an extended too. If you're still here for this, there's going to be an extended. I keep the extendeds pretty open for her to talk about whatever she wants to talk about. I know that they are far and few and far in between when I do these, because I do find them really tiring. But I've been off for a few days, so I feel like I could probably push through a couple of these today. But then it'll probably be a few days again before I do them. So I'm going to start with my Oracle of the Radiant Sun deck, and then I'm going into what she's got me done here. Such a mess. It was just a big pile to deal with. It sets off my Lilith in the 6th house. It's hard to keep it organized, tidy. Is Heaven and Earth Tarot and Murder of Crows Tarot are combined. So that's what I'm using. So Lilith and Virgo in 6th house. They seem like they've got certain similarities. So what do we want to talk about, Lilith? What would you like to talk about with this group of people? Power. The moon in Scorpio. Wow, that's really interesting. The moon in Scorpio. I can't tell if there's reflection or not. But you have the moon in Scorpio. That is really hidden. Hidden feelings and emotions. I know that too, because my son has the moon in Scorpio. So I'm prepared to deal with someone who's always going to be hiding his feelings and emotions from me. So, you know, I'm always cuddling and trying to make him sure he understands that those things are okay. So I find that very interesting, because it did talk about, like, particularly with Lilith and Virgo, emotions are not the most important factor. Yeah. A love should be practical and economical. Oh, I don't know. I kind of feel like love should be complete abandonment. Anyways, the world's not so easy that way. And at the bottom, you have Mercury and Taurus, resistance. Well, have y'all figured out what we're talking about? We're talking about your hidden emotions and your resistance to those. So it's just keeping the train on track here for what we've already discussed. All right, Lilith, give me some cards. Give me some tarot cards. Oh my gosh. Stop the presses. Look at this. Look at this. This moon looks like it's trying to eat up the sun. Doesn't it? I hope there's no glare. Let me just change the angle a few times. Doesn't it? Because it's so big. The crescent is like overcompassing the sun, which makes so much sense with the moon in Scorpio. So because your emotions really are, they should be like a compass to what your direction is, or what you feel like you would like your direction to be. So if your emotions aren't important, you're really not living from a soul level. You're living more from a very intellectual level, which is, I mean, it's important, but boy, it just feels like, so with the moon gobbling up the sun, I feel like your fears can overpower your hopes and dreams. Your fears will overpower your hopes and dreams. So I'm getting the message that when your emotions are not brought into the equation, wow, that's coming up again. I have to pull that card out again. You guys have probably seen it so many times now. It's the engineer card, the shadow aspect in the my archetype deck. I gotta pull it out. I should just keep it out because it, oh my God, it's right at the bottom. That's so freaking crazy. All right, so reliance on mechanistic solutions without regard for emotional consequences. To me, I just feel like so much of our world is that. It's like the emotional consequences, because this is always sitting inside, these emotional consequences. The more you resist it, the more it's going to come out like a big, explosive, ugly mess when it does come out. And it will come out. If you can somehow suppress this through an entire lifetime, I would imagine that your next lifetime, you're going to be trying to negotiate it again and again and again. So, yeah. I really feel like it's important to negotiate this, the mind and the heart, in the pursuit of life here for you. And try to do it earlier than later in your lifetime. You know, just be aware of it. How do you try to do anything when it comes to your own spiritual and your human development? Because if you push anything, you're not really allowing yourself to alchemize it. It's even just alchemizing the idea, perhaps, for some of you. Just coming to terms with it and letting it marinate and within you. Because the part, it's it's understanding the self first in this sign before you can project outwardly. So how the hell do you understand the self first if you're not taking your emotions into account? I feel like I'm channeling Lilith now. Like, how the hell do you expect to understand yourself and everyone around you if you don't embrace your emotions? Because your fears with the moon being related to, but yeah, okay. So your fears with the moon overtaking like the exploration of self with the sun and finding true self, finding true enlightenment, finding your happiest days. But the moon also represents our psyche and our psychic and the feminine. So the feminine becoming like not, it's almost like a toxic receptivity. You absorb without really releasing your own masculinity and your own search for your destiny and your true self here. And then the psychic aspect. But how is your psychic aspect supposed to serve you if you're not utilizing the sun in that search? if you're not trying to really understand the self. If you're just, I'm just going to be psychic, I'm just going to go with what my intellectual instinct may be telling me without encompassing your emotional instinct, even your sexual instinct. I mean, that did come up quite a bit. So it's kind of like from the top to bottom with the chakras, opening up your chakras. I feel like with Mercury and Taurus, like it is resistance. It's saying that. I mean, what I'm just getting out of the two of those, because I just think of Mercury and I think of movement and communication and knowledge and expansion, where Taurus seems to be like, you know, long and plodding and keeping it's the earth energy, but the resistance to that, the resistance to new ideas. Right? It's black or white. There's no gray here. There's got to be gray. It's the whole world is gray. The chaos of the, like the feminine, the dark side of the feminine. That's tricky, right? Because where's the balance here? Virgo is the only astrological sign that actually has a female in the depiction of what this is. So it's heavy feminine energy sitting here. And like anything, we have to have a balance. I feel like there's an emotional aspect to your masculine side that isn't allowed to come through. Okay, let's pull tarot cards now. There's a lot in this. It's like this message, this one, it's like channeling. Or a lot just for me finding the messages in like very few cards here. So I feel like almost that's a message with the intellect that goes on in this sign. Is looking for answers in too many places when there's really, you got the moon. You got the Hierophant and the moon. Wow. Real masculine and feminine energy coming up. You got the Hierophant and the moon. This is like the two sides of you. These two crows, one is more white and one is more black, the way the shadow and the light are hitting them, like the yin and the yang. And this energy is separated by expectations of you here. And then we have the moon. Okay, it's almost like the moon. Now the message I'm getting, the moon energy, this pushing away of emotions or not allowing emotions to come into play in major decisions in life, perhaps. And kind of feeling like, well, if I just allow my emotions to guide me in this aspect, I'm likely going to make a big mistake here with this Virgo 6th house placement. But I'm hearing the moon just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it's encompassing, like almost ready to swell, like Pac-Man. That's what it looks like. It's like Pac-Man, right? The sun. Pac-Man ready to take over the sun there. It's because this emotions, like I said, it almost feels like if at some point you're not like just leading a much more emotional life, or at least coming to terms with your emotions and using them, putting them in the equation to how you view yourself and everything around you, that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It becomes, at some point, it has to be dealt with. And then there's interesting that there's a path here on this moon card to take you to the mountain. And I'm just seeing, because we have the scarab beetle. So the scarab beetle going into the underworld, into the darkness of night, to lead the sun to come up over the mountain. So there's going to be something big that you have to address in life. You can see the path. I hope I'm not getting too much glare. And then see, I'm getting that same separation here with this line and the two crows, the yin and the yang of you, the shadow and the light of you here. Walking through the pillars and going over the mountain. It kind of feels like to me that you're really meant to be put or your life may have just happened in a way that you feel certain things kind of suppress you. I want to say, though, too, at some point, you're the one that becomes the suppressor of yourself, or the oppressor of yourself, based on reacting to outward stimuli. With the Hierophant, I mean, this can be the institutions that exist in life. It can be the institution of marriage. It can be the institutions that support our society. It can be, you know, and there's good and bad in all of those, you know. There's been probably a lot more bad than good in the last little while, but I think as we become more consciously evolved, and recognize that there's gray, and everything is not black and white. This culture is not this, and this culture is not that. There's a little bit of everything. At the end of the day, really, regardless of culture, everyone just wants to be happy and safe and fulfilled. And how we achieve that is different in different ways, you know. But definitely needing to go on a path here through the darkness. I feel like there's a switch here for you guys in this placement of navigating through life, perhaps like with a psychic attunement here, but that psychic ability being used kind of more intellectually. But that's why I feel like almost like walking through the pillars. Not seeing things as so black and white. And then almost as you come to the mountain, because to me, how do we get over the mountain? I don't think I can get over the mountain with just my intellect. I know I can't get over the mountain with just my intellect. The only way you can truly get over any mountain, when I talk about a mountain, right, like it could be a major obstacle or challenge in your life that you have to face. The thing that's going to push you through that, your intellect can maybe tell you it's probably better to do this on a cool sunny day so I can see what I'm doing and I can tell if the rock is loose, as opposed to at night where I can't really see. So, you know, like use your intellect there. But what's going to get you over that is your heart, is your soul. That's the part that's going to get you over the mountain. And that's the part that I feel like can get lost here with Lilith. She's really... I really just feel this energy of her trying to trying to direct you to your passion again, to feel comfortable in your passion. And I don't want to say either, like some of you, maybe you feel in this lifetime very comfortable being a sexual servant in the bedroom. I don't know, I find that one hard. The degrading part. That's such an interesting placement for Virgo and Lilith. I mean, again, I don't want to, that's a really personal thing to put in the comments, but it's like, what? Is that occurring too? Is something like that occurring through detachment in emotion, or trying to just feel anything, or trying to be something for someone, perhaps? Because this Hierophant energy, I feel like can kind of navigate that for people, like trying to be something for someone, or trying to be something based on a standard that's been set in some group, whether it's a church group, a political group, anything that could have to do with the Hierophant. I feel like I'm channeling now for people that are allowing themselves to be degraded. And that mountain is pushing beyond this. Like, and degradation can come in many different ways. You can give your power away. Well, actually, like, I think we all give our power away throughout the day in different ways, like just the push and pull of life. Opening a door for someone, you could say, and holding that door open and on some level is giving your power away. But it's also a sense of being humble. So there, like, again, when I talk about gradients, there's really, like, you could look at that as giving your power away. But I feel like this could almost start to snowball into how much you give your power away, because you may not be totally aware of your emotions or not utilizing them to say, how do I feel about this? Maybe you'd like to open up the door, but go first and hold it for the person. I don't know. As opposed, or just holding the door open and allowing someone to walk through. It's such a very basic thing to talk about. But that in itself, like, how does that make you feel? I want to see what's at the bottom here. Pick up this damn deck. The Nine of Pentacles, and then it's reversed. Oh, look at this. Oh, okay. So Nine of Pentacles, that's interesting. Nine of Pentacles, the Nine of Pentacles can kind of be too like having everything but an emotional fulfillment, because all of your physical needs are looked after and looking very fine. This could definitely manifest in forms of being overcritical with hygiene. The Nine of Pentacles there is a sovereignty to this energy, but at what cost, perhaps? The sovereignty may occur in this placement. And I'm also hearing sovereignty, that could be part of the mountain that is needed to climb here, is finding your true sovereignty for yourself. But in doing that, like, it may seem like you have a very practical plan here on how you're going to gain that if you've lost it or if you've never had it. How are you going to get that sovereignty? And then it's almost like unbeknownst to you that this actually is not such a journey in the plan and the execution of the plan for yourself, but it is finding all of this moon energy that's swallowing up the sun. Okay, I'm just going to ask, how does Lilith see the sovereignty? What is sovereignty to Lilith? I'm going to ask that. Why not? She's here. Let's do it. What is sovereignty to Lilith? Maybe I should do a reading. Just ask her questions after I've done all the zodiacs. What is sovereignty to Lilith? The first thing that came out was the Knight of Cups. Oh my God. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's the Knight of Cups, the Queen of Swords, the Page of Cups, and the Two of Cups. Look at that. What is sovereignty to Lilith? For you in this, it is moving forward with your heart, utilizing your heart, because I feel like the Queen of Swords here is saying, like, you've already developed your intellect. You've already developed your sense of perhaps like identity in terms of how you see yourself on it. It's hard to just not keep using the word intellect. I'm trying to come up with another word for like your mind space, how you engineer yourself. Maybe that's what this is too. The engineering of thyself. So the light is ability to give creative energy a practical expression. Talent for designing resolutions to common dilemmas. But I feel like when you add creative energy to this engineer is when you allow emotions to come through. But look at this development, like to see your way clearly, to move forward clearly, have your boundaries. Those boundaries are awesome, but don't completely hide your heart because you're too smart for that. Would make sense with this Virgo placement because you're too smart for that. And look what this turns into. The Knight of Cups moving forward with your heart and your boundaries. I want to say with the Queen of Swords there. It does say to me like the innocence of emotion with the Page of Cups. The innocence of emotion. Just things starting in a small way. And then the Two of Cups. Like everything you could ever want. In emotions here, the balance, even finding the balance within yourself first, perhaps, because I did get that here, like this yin and yang of you sitting at the Hierophant. Oh, that's so beautiful. What's at the bottom? What's at the bottom? Oh, justice, of course, balance. Justice, the Four of Pentacles, the Wheel of Fortune, and Seven of Pentacles. You can only go as far as you can at this point with the energies that you've utilized. You need to start utilizing your heart. That seems like it's been coming up a lot lately. To change your cycle, to have a new plan, to move out of stagnation. And maybe not stagnation for your whole life, but just perhaps a direction that you would like to go into. So there you go. This is my long and drawn out Lilith and Virgo. I'm going to go do the extended. Thank you so much, everybody. Until next time, do be gentle with yourselves. Bye.